The best way we can frame the U.S. intentions and the rhetoric involved here. A blockade is seen as an act of war. You were making the point that this is something short of that.
Yeah, a blockade is an act of war. So I think what we're really seeing is what's doctrinally known as a quarantine.
Okay.
Really what that is action taken against a very particular set of vessels, in this case, these sanctioned oil tankers. Mm-hmm. And a quarantine means you are still enforcing this. You're still using military power, but it isn't stopping all ships, which could include ships that are bringing things like aid and foodstuff to Venezuela from actually being able to transit. So I think we're seeing something that's a bit of a level down from a blockade, but it's worth saying that at the same time, we almost have a de facto quarantine already in place because vessels have been scared to transit near Venezuela. We've had scared aircraft not necessarily transiting airspace as well. So in some ways, this is an enforcement and a codification of what's already been in existence.
The president likes to joke that the fishermen aren't going out off Venezuela anymore. But just to be clear, because these tankers are sanctioned, gives the U.S. the legal standing to pursue this quarantine?
Yes, it absolutely does. In some ways, think of this like a police car just stumbling upon a stolen vehicle. They know that they can go and interrogate further and find a way to bring the perpetrator to justice. It's the same thing here, where they've already been sanctioned, and so it's just enforcing what's already been put down.
Roxanna, let's bring you in here. What does this action mean for Venezuela's economy? Obviously, there wasn't a heck of a lot of trade coming in and out of the country already, but this, as we mentioned, chokes off an important lifeblood and feedstock for the Venezuelan economy, and that's oil.
That's right. Venezuela's economy is almost completely dependent on its oil exports. They export, right now, they're just below 900,000 barrels. That's been the average for the last few months. And the revenue that the Maduro regime generates from those oil sales is then used to, on the one hand, of course, uphold a very corrupt regime, but on the other hand, also to provide goods for the Venezuelan people in a socialist country in which the people are very dependent on the government. So depending on the scope of the blockade, the enforcement mechanism, whether it's a law enforcement or whether it's a military enforcement, and the time frame, it can have really a big impact on Maduro's ability to generate revenue.
We're looking at video of U.S. Special Forces seizing the first of what could be many oil tankers, Roxanna. This is obviously, if we're talking about it, well known in Venezuela. Where are these tankers? What will they do to keep themselves from being seized?
Right. Right now, there are about 30 or so U.S. sanctioned tankers that are in Venezuelan waters out of about 80 vessels that are there. The big question is going to be, if one of these tankers tries to leave Venezuelan waters and enters international waters, how will the Trump administration respond? Will they do something similar to what you're showing right now, a law enforcement action through a warrant, or will they use the armada that the U.S. military has assembled to take action?
I want you to hear the voices, Roxanna and Becca, of lawmakers, D's and R's, following their briefing this week. There was a classified briefing for all members of Congress separately. The video of the second strike in the double tap attack, as we now call it, on that boat on September 2nd, being shown to some members. Let's listen.
The American people absolutely need to see this video. I think they would be shocked, sickened, even ashamed.
Admiral Bradley's done a great job. I'm totally confident in the legal basis for what he's done.
Secretary Hegseth is showing his deep disdain for members of Congress, his disrespect for members of the military and the rule of law and the rules of war and engagement.
Seeing people get killed on video is not fun, and they don't like the messy reality that we kill bad guys, and that's our job.
I'm deeply worried that there may be a loss or destruction of evidence here.
Becca, why not make this video public? What are we missing here? Or could there be some redacted or edited version that might satisfy Democrats?
There probably could be some version that would satisfy Democrats and would be suitable for broader release to the public. At the same time, there is the need to protect operational security. But what's likely the case here is this isn't something that the administration wants to show the public, in part because there is this contested conversation about the legality of these strikes and the broader question about this campaign overall. So at the end of the day, it might not serve their interests to provide this video to the broader public, which might be why we could potentially see some slow rolling in the future.
Interesting. Roxanna, where's your head on this? I'm assuming that this video will never be made public, even though the President of the United States said that he actually was open to that. He walked that comment back and left it up to his Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, who said it will never happen. What are we missing on this tape?
So I think in general, the lack of hard facts of who exactly is in the boats, what terrorists, foreign terrorist organizations are they a part of, and their specific facts about linking them to drug trafficking. All those details, I think, are extremely important to understand exactly what the campaign has been about. And of course, there is a sense that the counter-narcotics justification for this entire campaign has been a pretext for what very much looks like a regime change policy.
Regime change, but then why becomes the question as well. And I want both of you to listen to what President Trump said today on the tarmac on his way back from Dover. This is really important because we were told this was about drugs, right? Stopping the drug trade, blowing up drug boats, making fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction, as he called it. Today, it never came up. The president said clearly that it was about oil. Listen.
Getting land, oil rights, whatever we had, they took it away because we had a president that maybe wasn't watching. But they're not going to do that. We want it back. They took our oil rights. We had a lot of oil there. As you know, they threw our companies out, and we want it back.
Becca, they took our oil, and we're going to take it back. What's he talking about?
He's talking about the fact that U.S. companies were a big part of the Venezuelan oil boom when there was still U.S. presence and business presence in the country. And so I think what we've seen since then is Chevron is really the only company that has remained. And I think there is sort of this idea that we've seen from President Trump. We also saw Stephen Miller tweeting about it earlier today, that the U.S. has a right to some of those oil assets and is trying to use this as an opportunity to actually get to those. It does, as you say, it is a big change from at first we were told that this was about protecting American citizens from potential drug trade, from potential drug trafficking. And since then, the rationale seems to have shifted over time, which leaves us to question, what is this truly about? And to Roxanna's smart point before, it ultimately does look to be about regime change, about finding different ways to pressure Nicolas Maduro and to force him from power.
All right, Roxanna, what do you think about this? Is this whole operation about oil?
So based on the announcement that the president made last night and the very clear line that the president has set related to what his allegations of stolen land, oil, and other assets, it does point to some sort of end goal that includes Venezuela making some deal potentially with the Trump administration to return what President Trump alleges has been stolen from the United States. In some ways, this justification makes more sense than the counter-narcotics justification, which just was very unaligned and mismatched with the military deployment, all the rhetoric against Maduro. If this is the end goal, to me, this points to some achievable, negotiable approach. It's very notable that President Trump did not say in his announcement and has not said since last night that part of that end goal includes Maduro exiting, even if that might be part of the intended outcome, because that is going to be very challenging and a sticking point in any future negotiations.